Today I'm talking about the best metal albums of February 2025. It was a really good month, probably one of the best months for metal I've heard in a while, and I have a big list. I have 20 albums, so I'll go through them fairly quickly. I don't want this video to drag too long. I want this to be about like 15 minutes or so. I'm going to rank them from 20 to 1. I have them listed in the video description in alphabetical order. If you want to see the order, just watch the video. So let's get into it. At number 20, I have Robin McCauley with Soulbound. This one was released on February 28th. It came out on the Frontiers label. If you don't know Robin McCauley, he's been in the metal scene for a long time. He was in the McCauley Schenker group in the late 80s with Michael Schenker and many other bands. This is his fourth solo album under his own name. It's basically melodic hard rock. It's very infectious, lots of fist-pumping melodies. And this one just rounds out the top 20 because it's a fun album. If you like that classic 80s style arena rock, it's pretty good. So check. And number 19 is Game of Faces by Dynazty. They are a Swedish heavy metal and power metal band. They formed in 2007. This is their 9th album. This is some of that European power metal with some very catchy melodies and a big mix of keyboards and guitars. A good band to compare them to be would be another Swedish power metal band called Bloodbound. This is just another album filled with melodic songs, some very good production, some soaring vocals. There's lots of keyboard synth. Songs are catchy. It's melodic power metal. And number 18 is Post-Apocalyptic Depression by Mantar. They are a German band. They get labeled as sludge metal, but I think they're a lot more than that. It's like a mix of black metal, heavy metal, and grunge. Something along those lines. And when I say grunge, I mean the more underground stuff, like Melvins or those lesser known bands that were on the Sub Pop label that was back in the early 90s in Seattle. Something along those lines. And I'm reading their bio on their Bandcamp page. Supposedly they didn't use any bass guitar on this record. I thought that was interesting. It's a fun album, it's catchy, has those blackened vocals, but it's also like traditional heavy metal like Motorhead, so they're very unique. That's why they're on this. 17 is Retromorphosis with Salmus Mortis. They are a Swedish technical death metal band comprised of members of the band Spawn of Possession. It's their debut album, and under this new name, it's basically an old band that kind of like changed their name. But it's technical death metal, but it's accessible enough for a typical metal fan. Sometimes I feel tech death bands are just aiming for technicality and they lose melody and song structure. But this band doesn't do that. But this one is still very technical, but still has death metal riffs. So I like that. And there's also lots of intense drumming, harsh vocals, everything you would expect, and really good production value. So check this one. Is Majestica with Powertrain. They are a Swedish power metal band, and one of those rare cases where choosing an album I didn't review, I was able to listen to it, and it's really good. Has a really big and epic sound, really great production. It's mostly power metal, but also has symphonic elements, lots of big guitar riffs, soaring vocals, and it's a follow-up to an album they put out 5 years ago called The Christmas Carol, which I never got a chance to listen to. But this album has lots of catchy choruses, everything's epic, and doesn't have any weak tracks. It's filled with really good songs, lots of fast-paced riffs, a lot of double bass drumming, so I like this one. At number 15 is Avantasia with Here Be Dragons. This is a symphonic and power metal project started by Tobias Sammet, and he's from the band Edguy. He's been putting out albums under this band name since the 2000s. Basically, all the albums feature him and his band, and they have lots of big name guest stars. To be honest, for this album, I thought it was good, but I thought it was lacking some of the musicians that were on previous albums. So for example, this one has big name artists like Michael Kiske from Halloween and Jeff Tate, formerly of Queensryche. But I thought it was missing a few people like Jorn Lend and a few others. But despite that, I like this album a lot. And this one actually moved up a few spots since I started making this list because I've been listening to this one a lot. My favorite tracks are Creep Show. That one's super catchy. That one's been stuck in my head for like the past 2 or 3 days. And there's so many other really good songs. So not their best album, but I think it's really worth a listen. And number 14 is Airforce with Acts of Madness. It's a band from London, England. They formed in 1987. They took a break in 2001 and they reformed in 2008. It's the third full-length album. It features Doug Sampson, and he was the drummer for Iron Maiden in the late 70s, and the band sounds a lot like early Iron Maiden. The vocalist, whose name is Flavio Lino, sounds a lot like Bruce Dickinson. Not much else to say about it because the songs have all the elements that will make you think of Iron Maiden songs, such as galloping guitars and the big guitar riffs. I think the biggest difference is this is more of a guitar-centric band, whereas Iron Maiden used more bass guitar. But other than that, just some classic heavy metal, and that's all I can. And number 13 is Udo Dirkschneider with Balls to the Wall Reloaded. This album just came out. It's a re-recording of the classic album by Accept, and it's in celebration of its 40th anniversary, which I think was back in December of 2023. This album features Udo on vocals, and every song is a guest vocalist, and they sing it as a duet. So, for example, the opening track, Balls to the Wall, has Joaquin brought in from Sabaton. There are other standout tracks like London Leather Boys with Biff Byford, Losers and Winners with Dee Snider, Winter Dreams with Doro Pesh. I don't have much else to say about it. The production's very good, and it sounds very good in this updated format. That's why it's on. Number 12 is Seer with Amidst the Ruins. It's a one-man atmospheric folk and black metal band from Scotland. They've been active since 2013. This is their 6th album. This is some atmospheric black metal, but the music is very dense. It's heavy, it's beautiful, and at the same time, you hear all these layers of these folky melodies, and makes you feel like you're in the middle of nature, but at the same time, it has all the elements you would expect from black metal, such as harsh vocals, tremolo pick guitar riffs, and blast beat drumming. Sam has lots of long tracks, so I think there's only 5 tracks. And it's the type of album you just put on headphones, listen to it, just sit back, you get transported to the middle of forest, and you could become one with nature, just like I am right now. And that's all I can say. If you're not into black metal, I think you should check it out anyway. It's a little easier to listen to than a typical black metal. Number 11 is Obscura with Asonication. They're a German technical tech death metal band. They've been active since 2002, their 7th album. Now, this is the second part of a trilogy, began in the year 2021, called A Valediction, and this one's called Asonication. It's tech death, and ever since the last album, they started moving more towards a melodic death metal sound, so this one's also a little easier to digest, but they still have the technical guitar riffs, so for that reason, I like it. I'm usually not a fan of tech death, but sometimes it's too technical, but I like it when they get like very melodic, like this band. I also like the fact that the bass player uses the fretless bass guitar, and that gives it a unique sound. So that's why I like this one. And as Architects with The Sky, the Earth, and All Between. They are a British metalcore band, and they've been very popular. They've changed their sound over the years. The last few albums have gone in more of a pop direction or a melodic direction, but they still maintain their heaviness. The album was produced by former Bring Me the Horizon keyboardist Jordan Fish, another one that just came out last weekend. I thought it's pretty good. It has grown on me over the past few days. I've been listening to it. There are a few tracks which I like. I like the first 2 tracks, Elegy, and the second track, Whiplash. The one song I don't like is called Chandelier, which is a pop song. I still don't like the song, even after listening to it a few times. But otherwise, still pretty good, and it made my top 10. So that's it. And number 9 is Brainstorm with Plague of Racks. This is a German heavy metal and power metal band. They've been active since 1989. This one just came out. It was a surprise. This one I wasn't expecting to like. I never heard of the band. I just had a promo of it, and I listened to it. And I like it. It has Indian influences, and it's power metal, but a little more on the aggressive side. So more similar to bands like Iced Earth or Blind Guardian, more of those guitar-centric bands, and a little more along the lines of traditional heavy metal as well. But it's a really good album. Lots of guitar riffs, fast-paced drum beats, big vocals, and the Indian influences are just icing on the top of the cake. That's why it's at number. Number 8 is Lacuna Coil with Sleepless Empire. They are an Italian gothic metal band. It's their 10th album, released on February 14th, 2025 through Century Media. And this was something I've been looking forward to. I've been a fan of this band for the past few years. I like the vocals of Christina Scavia. And the album is actually really good. It's grown on me a lot over the past few weeks. I've been listening to it a lot. And has a few guest spots, Randy Blythe from Lamb of God, Ash Costello from New Year's Day. And it's a continuation of the sound with the male and female vocals, usually sung as a duet with lots of down-tuned guitar riffs. They call it gothic metal, but I don't know what to call it. It's more like groove metal, metalcore, whatever you want to call it. It's good. It's at number 7 is Nachtblut with Todstick. It's a band I discovered by chance. They are a German gothic melodic black metal band, and they're on the Napalm Records label. So if you're curious, the name means night blood in German, and I kind of discovered this one by chance. I saw them listed on the Brainstorm website. I was expecting something along the lines of dissection or more black metal because they were labeled as melodic black metal. But what I got was a cross between Cradle of Filth and Rammstein. That's how I can describe them. Because for some reason, those two bands, they don't sound like they go together, but they do. And they go together like peanut butter and chocolate. They have Rammstein-styled guitar riffs, blackened vocals that are in the style of Danny Filth, lots of creepy symphonic sounds, and it just makes it an awesome album. I really like it. And also the lyrics are in German, so that makes it even a little better. Number 6 is Hirax with Faster Than Death. This is a thrash metal band from California. They formed in 1984. They released a few albums in the late 80s. They took a break, got back together, released some more albums in 2000, and have been releasing off and on in the past few years. This is their 6th album and first in 11 years. So it's pretty good. It's crossover thrash, more along the lines of bands like DRI, SOD, MOD, Sacred Reich, those types of bands. And it's the music I like. I listened to this a lot when I was younger. So it's a short album, 10 songs, 20 minutes. Songs are like 1.5 minutes long or up to 3 minutes. The longest song is like 3 minutes. So short, straight to the point, crossover thrash, and it just came out as well. It's at my number 6. Number 5 is Sacrifice with Volume 6. And now that I think of it, I probably should have ranked this album at number 6, but it's not. It's number 5. They are an old school Canadian thrash metal band, one of the original thrash metal bands from the Canadian scene. I listened to their first album because I recently did a video on the Canadian thrash metal scene of the 80s, and I would call them the Slayer of Canadian thrash. Their first album had lots of dark themes, lots of occult themes. Their lyrics have toned down a little bit. They're a little more real, I guess, more current event stuff. But as for the music, it's still very heavy, very fast. It's extreme thrash metal, and it sounds really great. These guys still sound very good. So it's my number 4 is Jinjer with Duél. They are a Ukrainian alternative metal band, and that's kind of a weird label for them because it's just a band with a female singer named Tatiana, and she's very versatile. She can do everything from death growls to clean vocals, pop vocals, everything else in between. And the album is filled with heavy guitar riffs, powerful drumming, just killer, start to finish. One of the best albums they've released in a long time, and for that reason I really like it. I did a full review. I don't need to go into too much detail. You can find it on my channel, but just worth a mention. And now it's time for the top 3. And this top 3 was really hard to put into order because any one of these 3 albums can be my number 1. I think one of them is going to be obvious. You probably know what it is already. Another one you might suspect being in the top 3. And then it's one which will probably be a surprise because I was kind of lukewarm on it when I first reviewed it. But since it's released, it has shot all the way up to being one of my favorites of the month. So that's the album in question. At number 3, Killswitch Engage with This Consequence. It's a big surprise because if you watch my full review, I was kind of lukewarm. I had my doubts about it. I thought it was kind of predictable, but I've been listening to it over and over and over and over. And I've also listened to the entire Killswitch Engage discography in full. I have a ranking video planned that will be out either this week or next week. But this is one of their best albums, possibly since their prime years, those like early 2000s era. This is like their best album in a long time, which is kind of going to give it away of where I'm going to rank it. But killer start to finish, and that's why it's my number 3. My number 2 is Marco Hietala with Roses from the Deep, solo album from the former Nightwish bass player and singer. I've always been a fan. I think he has a really great singing voice. He's a great musician in general. The album has lots of variety on it, mostly hard rock, heavy metal. Songs are very catchy, very memorable, and I've been listening to this album a lot. It was almost my number 1. I think the reason it's not my number 1, there's one song on there called Two Soldiers, which I don't like that much, but every other song in the album is just great. So for that reason, it's my number 2. So it shouldn't be any surprise. My number 1 is Dream Theater with Parasomnia. It's their best album in a long time, which is, I guess not that long because the last time was pretty good as well, but I think they're returning to a darker and heavier sound type of album. It doesn't have any filler tracks. Like every song is really good. Favorite songs: Midnight Messiah, Broken Man, and there's one ballad which I usually don't like ballads, but this one was good. I like the guitar solo, and it's the return of Mike Portnoy, so it has to be. So that's all. Please check out last week's episode of new metal releases for February 28th, where I have full reviews on some of the bands of this list. Thanks for watching. Please give the video a like. Helps me with the YouTube algorithm. Please subscribe if you're not already. I do rock and metal reviews, rankings, and more. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one.